Good morning, folks. My name is Jason Cadle with Microbiology International. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to go through a demonstration of our media preparation equipment, and we will do a brief PowerPoint presentation, then go back in and do a practical demonstration of the units that I have with me here today. We have our MediaPrep 10, the MediaFill 440, and also a MediaPrep 120, just to give an idea of the range of sizes that we have. We're welcoming any questions that you may have during the presentation. Please type those into the chat feature that is located in the bottom right of your screen in the GoToMeeting area. Once we compile those questions near the end of the demonstration, we will have one of my colleagues proctor those questions to us so I can answer all of them for you. Again, I appreciate your time, and we will begin with this brief presentation. So again, Microbiology International. My name is Jason Cadle. I'm National Sales Manager for the company. I've worked here for over 20 years, and in that time, what we have done is we were established in 1997 and dedicated to bringing some of the finest capital equipment sourced from around the globe to the microbiology sector. We've developed some strategic alliances with manufacturing partners. And then also, and one of those partners is Systec, who is the manufacturer of the media preparation equipment that we'll go through today. We've worked with Systec since the year 2001, providing their autoclaves and media preparation equipment throughout North America. This media preparation equipment is also very central to our operation for the consumable products that we manufacture here at our facility. We received our ISO certificate in the previous years for the media goods that we offer and sell throughout North America. And again, we utilize all of the Systec media preparation equipment that you will be seeing in the demonstration today in order to manufacture all of those products. So our equipment portfolio is quite extensive. We have a range of laboratory autoclaves from as small as 45 liters all the way up to 1580 liters. Those are also manufactured by Systec that's located in Germany. Anaerobic workstations, also a very large part of our portfolio that we offer that are from our manufacturing partner, Don Whitley Scientific. In addition, we have automated colony counters, spiral platers, the automated media preparation equipment that we'll discuss today, air samples, sample preparation equipment, microaerobic workstations, as well as hypoxia workstations, and incubators as well. So this is a brief look at what we would do if we were attending meetings these days. This is our layout at a recent ASM meeting that shows the breadth of the product line that we offer. So now go back to the demonstration portion after you've learned a little bit about who we are as a company and the different product portfolios that we offer, and go into the demonstration of the two products that we have here today. So again, to discuss the units that we offer, here is the MediaPrep 10 system. So the MediaPrep 10 is the smallest of the units that we offer. This is the only benchtop model that we provide. So we have quite a range of systems. The 10, 20, 30 liter system are all built on the same chassis. Them being built on the same chassis basically means that as they get larger, then they just get taller. So the 10 is the only benchtop model. Then we would have a 20, which is just a bit taller, and then a 30 as well. The minimum volume for the 10 is 2 liters. So it's either 2 to 10 liters with the 10 liter system, 2 to 20, or 2 to 30, depending upon the size that you pick. Again, the 20 and 30 are floor models, so they would be on casters and located on the floor, whereas this would be our benchtop model. Then we have the MediaFill system. The MediaFill, this is the MediaFill 440. This is designed for 90 millimeter plates. So these 90 millimeter standard dishes, or 100 by 15, whichever way that we like to term them, is the standard application for the system. This system can also dispense 60 millimeter or 35 millimeter plates as well. In addition to doing a standard 100 millimeter plate, we can also do deep dish plates as well. So for any of the customers that are working with a deep fill plate, or any plant tissue culture customers that need to utilize more media inside of the plate, then the system is already fabricated in order to be able to dispense these dishes. So just for viewing, we also have the MediaPrep 120 here today as well. So this is the largest system that we offer. After the 10, 20, and 30 that we have that are built in this fashion, then we would have systems that look a bit different here, and those would be the 45, the 65, the 90, and the 120. Each of these would look very similar to this. The 90-liter system is on the same chassis as the 120, so it's just a bit shorter but the same width, so it gives you a good idea of how large the system is. And then the 45 and 65 are just a little bit thinner and are roughly the same height as the 90 and the 120. So what we'll do is go back to the MediaPrep 10 after that brief overview and look a little bit of how the system would work and the way that you would prep this in order to sterilize your media. I'm just going to hit the open key on the system, and then the lid will open for me. Once that lid is open, it is hinged quite easily. There are locking pins that go into the top of the system that allow us to close the lid. Once that senses that it's closed, the pins will lock into position and it will be sealed. It is of note that all of our MediaPrep systems are the only ones manufactured that are ASME certified, which means that any other of the MediaPrep products that you may see on the market could potentially have a vessel that would be faulty or a vessel that would not be approved to be used in your local ordinance. The inner bucket is easily removable, so this just removes. There is a stir bar that is located at the bottom of it that is on a locking pin. So there's a locking pin at the bottom and the stir bar is removed. That just goes back into position after you've cleaned this out after the end of one cycle, and then just goes back into the unit. One really nice part about the way that this system is loaded, the vessel is loaded into the unit, is that there are spacers located on the side of the vessel. So there is no specific orientation for how this unit sets down into the sterilizing portion. It just simply sets in, and then it will find where it needs to be. So the heaters are located at the bottom. When we would start a cycle, the way that that would work is water would flow to the outer vessel, and then our heaters would turn on, create the heating jacket for this, and sterilize the media. So when you would add components to this bucket, the way that we would do that is we would add half of the water. Once that half of the water is in, we would add any powder components that we have, rinse that out with the rest of the water, and I can also stir this while it's actually open. So you can hear that stirring mechanism work right now. So that is adjustable as well. So I can adjust that stir bar. So the stirring can happen with water located in there and start to put all of the powder into suspension. What's actually going to drive that all into suspension, though, is the heat and the pressure that we're going to add to the unit. So on the top of the vessel, what you will see here, could you zoom in for me, please? What you will see is the port where we would remove the media from this. This sets down at the bottom of the vessel. So at the end, we would be able to create suction with a peristaltic pump and dispense into the individual plates. There is also a PT100 that is located on the vessel lid as well. That is to monitor the temperature for the entire process of the sterilization. So it will heat all the way to 121, or temperature that you program into the system for the time that you specify. Then we will cool it down through a heat exchanger that is located on the right-hand side of the instrument. That heat exchanger would be cooled from the DI water that flows back out of the system through the heat exchanger, and then would be cooled by tap water. Once that is cooled, that flows back into the vessel, and then we will cool the media down to the specific holding temperature that we want. So once we've added our components, we would close the lid down. It will seal. Once that's sealed, we can start the cycle just by pressing the start key. We will go through some of the components on the screens once we've given an overview of how the systems would actually operate. On the top of the MediaPrep, there is the port where we can have removal. So the tubing that is attached to this is all pre-sterilized. So you would put this into a sterilization pouch. So there is a piece that will go down into the top of the MediaPrep that will seal and form suction into that unit. Then there is the dispensing tip that attaches into the MediaFill. Once your sterilization is done, you would wrap these components in foil. You would bring them out of the foil and, using your best aseptic technique, put them down onto the system and tighten it down. So that is the removal port. The second port that we have is for any components that are thermolabile. So if you're adding blood, or if you're adding any antibiotics after the cycle is complete, or at a stage, then you can add them through the larger port here. So those can be brought up into a pipette in a hood and then transferred over and dispensed into the system. So there is programming available for us to stop this unit at a specific temperature that would be safe for any of the components that you want to add. So if we wanted to add something at 60 degrees and wanted to put antibiotics into the system, we can program this to stop at 60 degrees after sterilization. It would give us an alert. You can add the components, then press go again. It will stir for a specified amount of time and then cool down to our holding temperature. So once that's finished, we would then connect over to the MediaFill. So connection to the MediaFill is only through tubing, so the two units do not communicate really. It would just simply go over to the easy load pump. So the pump just has a really easy way to load into that. Just opens up, the tubing gets inserted, and we just close it down. So now we've loaded our tubing into the system, and then the port for where we would remove and pump media into the unit is located here. Okay? So we will start. I'm going to move that tubing out of there so it doesn't get damaged. And then we would start the MediaFill. The MediaFill has a carousel that is easily loaded, so the plates just simply go into the system. We can just remove them. So any type of plates we can use, because we do have a plate catalog inside of the system that allows us to program individual plates types into it. Each of these plates from different manufacturers all have a bit of different sizes, so we would need to program that for the specific plate type. Now, if you use multiple plate types, we can put those into the catalog. Just simply select the correct plate type and then move on. This system is designed for slippable plates for automation. So almost always, if you're going from a manual process, you may be using a stacking ring plate. Just one catalog number different is most likely the exact same plate, but then it is designed for slippable automation so the plates can move through robotics, as we see here. So the lid on this system can be opened up. The plates will be loaded through into the revolver where they will be opened, and then they will be restacked into the system. So in normal operation, the lid would always be closed, but so you can just view what's actually happening in the system, I'm going to put a magnet back here so it's normally sensed, so you wouldn't be able to open this while they're moving components. I'm going to start a cycle. And again, we will go through some of this programming once we've finished viewing this portion. If I'm ready to go, I can just simply hit go. Then our plates are going to start to be shuttled through. So the plate will be loaded into the unit. Then once it gets to this area, our pump will turn and that plate will be filled, and then will shuttle through and then be restacked into the carousel. The system is rated at roughly 750 to 900 plates per hour, depending upon fill volume and the rate of speed that you're processing through with the unit. Now this filling chamber, normally this lid would be closed, is going to be completely bathed in UV light during the entire filling process until the plate is restacked into the system. So you'll notice that these plates, the way that they're shuttling through, we don't have any type of gripper, or the whole stack of plates is not weighted down where it has to remove one plate each time. So it's a very quiet operating system and very smooth operation for shuttling the plates through. The system can be programmed for us to be able to say how much volume that we have inside of our MediaPrep system, or we can say that we want to dispense up to 250 plates. Once those 250 plates have been completed, the unit will pause. As I have it running now, anytime that it finds an empty column, then the plate pour will stop. So it will pause after. So I have a couple of columns that are empty here. It's going to run through those columns. Once it runs to a column that's empty, then it will pause. So one column is completely emptied, and then once that is completely emptied, it would transfer to the next. Now the system also, for any plate pouring system, if you've operated any of these, one of the most important things about a plate pouring system is to keep it clean. So on the main screen of our system, we do have a cleaning menu that will allow us to go through and clean any of the areas inside of the system. There are no tools that are required to take any of this apart. The carousel, the lid, and the revolver are all easily removed and accessible for cleaning. I'm going to move one stack of plates over so that way it can find that empty column inside of there, and then it will pause the pouring. So you can tell that there is a white light that is on inside of the filling chamber. In this case, we have that for demonstration purposes. Normally that would be a UV light, but we put that white light in there for this purpose so we're not blinding each other as we're looking at these. There is also a cooling device that is located in the back right of the filling chamber that as the plates are poured, it will reside on this cooling area before it is restacked in the carousel to start the gelling process of the media. All of your media is going to start gelling, depending upon the type, around 42 degrees. So the temperature that we program in the MediaPrep to pause at is probably around 48. So that gives us a lot of flexibility for losing any type of heat through the transfer process into the system. And then once that happens, if we had any errors or anything like that, then we would be able to solve them without having to have media solidified in our tube. So once that's finished, we can go ahead and just hit exit process if we want to. And it stops, and now we can either move on to the next process or go through any type of cleaning for the instrument. So what I'm going to do now is just kind of take the system apart and go through what the cleaning would look like. For this, you saw the bucket removed from this instrument. So once that vessel, the inner vessel, is removed there, you simply take it to a sink and wash that, and then you're ready to move on to the next cycle. For your tubing, you want to be able to remove that after the cycle is complete, undo the tubing, and then you would take this to a sink and you would make sure that you rinse this out really well. We don't want to have any solidified media inside of this tubing that would create hydrostatic pressure on the next cycle that would end up overshooting the plate that we have in the filling chamber. We'll just close this down, and then I'm going to run through the cleaning process and the disassembly of this instrument, because again, that is very important to make sure that this instrument is clean for it to run correctly. So the lid is just easily removed. The lid just comes off. The revolver can be removed out of the system. And then the carousel can be removed as well. There are areas on the outside of the carousel that are not the actual spindles that hold the plates into position for removal of this piece. So that simply just comes off. And now we can access any of the portions of this unit for cleaning. So the cleaning is directly on the main screen. If I go into the cleaning area, now I can rotate and move any of the axes in here. So if I wanted to lift the feeder or the stacker piston and clean out from underneath that, I can do that just from the screen. So you can see these moving up. And so now I can access this for cleaning. The system is completely sealed with the board to operate this unit housed vertically here. So there's really no ability for us to get any liquids into the system or any cleaners, as the entire system is completely sealed. That being said, we can clean this with any type of antimicrobial or sporicidal cleanser that we want to use. We just don't recommend that you spray anything directly on the screen. You would spray that onto a cloth and then give that a nice wipe down. But again, we can move the carousel and also the revolver if we want to in this position in the cleaning mode as well. Once we've cleaned everything and we want to put everything back into position, we can just drop these pistons back into place and then put items back in. The way that items fit inside of here, the revolver, what you'll see is there are little locking areas inside of that, and the unit will find its home once this is put into position. So we do not need to really specify exactly how this goes in. Once it sets down into position, then it will, when we start a cycle, it would go through and find its home position before we would start. Then we can just replace the carousel. And now we've cleaned the unit and we're ready to move forward, okay? So before we would go into any of the other screens that we want to go into for programming, there are a couple of, I'd like to go through the MediaPrep 120, just the same sort of look as the MediaPrep 10, except you're going to have a much larger vessel. So the opening is going to be a little bit different. This has a circumference locking ring. So the lid is going to be a little bit different in the fact that it doesn't have any locking pins on the base of the system. The vessel is still removable, so we can remove the vessel from this. There is also the capability of adding a lift to this unit if we would like, that can be located on the side, so we can attach that to here to remove any of the empty vessel or a vessel that may have a bit of media left in it. It's not designed obviously to lift this full, only designed for labor-saving device to make sure that we're not lifting this bucket up and out of there all the time. We have a lot of customers that utilize the MediaPrep 120s. Probably about 30% of them do utilize the lift that would just attach to the bale to be able to lift this out of here, but many folks just use these and just lift them out on their own. Same stirring mechanism at the bottom of it, obviously just a longer dispensing tube that's going to go down to the bottom of the unit, and longer temperature probe. So the one thing that we want to be careful of is making sure that our temperature probe does not get crimped, nor does it get closed into the lid or anything like that upon removal. With the MediaPrep 10, we don't worry about that as much because it's short enough that it's really difficult to get caught anywhere. Once it gets a little bit longer, then we need to be considerate of how we're closing the lid on a regular basis. But this lid is closed. There are locking sensors around the edge, and there's a locking ring in here that will close the lid down. So once we close this lid, just press it into position. It will vacuum the lid down. Once that vacuum creates, then the locking ring will go into position, and all of those sensors located in the lid all must be in harmony for us to move forward and say the unit is closed and ready to start a cycle. When we start a cycle with any of our MediaPrep systems, it will go through a pressure test to verify that we have all of our ports closed before we actually put any pressure or start heating anything inside of the unit. So there is a test for that, and then we would do a water inlet to create the heating jacket before it starts heating to sterilization. So I think at this point we would like to go into the other mechanism for the plate pouring device, which is the tube filling option. So the tube filling option is quite useful and can have, so the MediaFill offers us really a multifaceted instrument that allows us to do 35 millimeter, 60 millimeter, 100 millimeter plates, as well as deep dish plates, and then can also be changed over into a tube filling device. So with one instrument, we do really have a lot of facility to offer a lot of labor-saving type applications for your laboratory. So we'll just change this out real quickly. So you saw me remove these items, so we're just going to take them out again. Now, the tube filling device is an option that can be purchased at any time. All of the systems are pre-programmed to have the tube filling option available inside of the programming, but what we would need to do is add the components that we need for the device. So the tube filling plate fits very similar to the carousel. it would rotate into position, and then it would set down. Let's find where that is. So once it finds its position, then we would have the ability to put up to 4 racks of these. Now, you do have to use these racks because they hold the tubes in a very tight position in order for us to hit the exact tube and fill it correctly. So you have the ability to put 4 racks on the base of the unit. Depending upon the size of tubes is how many tubes you can fit per rack, because all the racks are the same size. So these are for all the commonly purchased tubes. They're 13, 16, 20, 25, and 30 millimeter tubes the system is designed for with the configuration. So with the 16 millimeter tubes, which we found to be probably the most popular tubes that folks use, we can fit 60 tubes in each rack. Since we have 4 racks, that's 240 tubes that we can fill with just one press of a button. So tube filling is also something that we do, and we offer these tubes commercially, and we utilize this process every week, every day, in order to fill tubes that we're actually sending out to customers. So once the tube filling device goes on, then there is a small piece that fits into where the revolver would be in plate pouring applications. And there is a dispensing arm that goes into position. Once the dispensing arm is in position, we can just tighten this down. Once it is tightened down, then we can adjust the filling arm as well by moving it into position and loading our tubing. So the tubing for tube filling is smaller, a smaller bore tubing. This is 3 millimeter tubing. The tubing for plate pouring is 6 millimeter internal diameter, as we are dispensing smaller volumes in this case. So tube fits here. And we need to put the lid back into position so we can protect the end user from any of the moving components that are here. So once this goes into position, we can go through the tube filling, and again, we will go in through the screen later. Go to tube filling. That's the one that we want. And we just move the arm to a position that states on the screen. Just hit go. It will move the tubes into the first position. Then we can manually move the dispensing arm. Once we've manually moved the dispensing arm into position, now it's based over the first tube. Once that's over the first tube, we can just hit go. And now it's going to go ahead and dispense our tubes for us here. So it will move on these various axes and go through each and every tube. We can program the number of racks that we want to fill, and then it would just go right through every single tube, fill all of them, move to the next rack. The benefit of this is that once this first rack is filled, if you need to remove that for capping or to change any of the change tubes out to put another rack on, it's not moving very fast, so we can do that in the middle of the cycle itself once this rack is finished. So we could run this basically just on a permanent mode and just put new racks up and it'd be continually filling tubes. The entire rack of tubes for, if you're doing a 9 mil fill, which is very common for these 16 millimeter tubes, what we're looking at is about 10 minutes is the time frame that you would be looking at for filling of all 240 tubes. And again, while that's happening, your end user could be doing something else. They don't need to be standing here watching this. They could be capping the tubes that have already been filled or filling more racks to add to the system. So just go ahead and stop that and go back. And now I'm going to change this back into the plate pouring device. So just to give you an idea of how easy it is to transfer them from one type to another. The other thing that we have mentioned while we were talking is also 60 millimeter and also 35 millimeter plates. In order to do that application, we would need to change the revolver and also the carousel. So those are the only items that we would need to change in order to make this do another type of plates. So if you're doing a lot of 100 millimeter and a lot of 60 millimeter plates, then you would just simply have 2 carousels, 2 revolvers, and then the little feet that lift the plates for the stacker and the feeder piston would need to be changed. Also a very simple process, less than 5 minutes once you're familiar with the application. So now we have it back to a plate pour. So that would show you exactly what we would need to change if we were going to go to a 60 millimeter plate. Simply change the revolver, the piston and stack, the piston feet, and then also the carousel. So at this point, I'd like to go into the programming of the MediaPrep. So give us just a brief moment to get our camera into position so we can get onto the screen, and then we will run through the programming and the setup on the screen. This is the home screen that you would see on the system normally. So on the top of the area, what you would see here on the top of the screen is the actual cycle that we are running. This system would be programmed to have either a standard media cycle that is going to be rising to a sterilization temperature for the specified amount of time, then it would cool down to our holding temperature, and then we would be ready to dispense. Then we have media plus additives, which would have a stage screen in there that would allow us to go to a certain stage temperature, where then we would add our components and then move forward with the cooling process down to the finished dispensing temperature. This is our current temperature inside of the unit, so that is read by the temperature probe. The pressure is 101 kPa, which is basically sea level. If many of you folks are used to PSI, 15 PSI would be sea level. Your sterilization pressure would at 121 would be roughly 30 PSI. Here it would be roughly 215 kPa is the pressure that we would be looking at. Then we have our buttons at the bottom for start to begin a cycle, to open the lid, or when we open the lid, once the lid is open, that start key will illuminate again, and once that's illuminated, then we would actually be initiating the stirring inside of the unit. So this is a bit loud, but if I hit start, then it will give you on the screen what the RPMs are for the instrument, for the stirring mechanism, and then I can just hit stop. That would stop the stirring, okay? Once I close the lid, that stop is going to turn back into a start, and then we would hit that button to begin the cycle. Then we would have a menu and any of the programming. In the menus, there are a service menu and also the ability for us to have a user menu. So we can program different users into this instrument that would have a specific password, and that specific password would allow them certain access to the instrument. Because this is an autoclave, we would like to most likely program all of the cycles that we would want into the instrument and then kind of lock it down so the user could access the instrument and use it, but not change any of the parameters. We could leave that to more of an admin type use or the management to change any of those cycles. Once we go into programming, now we would go into the individual screens for the programs themselves. So our first program is just media with an additional name. If I wanted to adjust that, all I do is just hit the pencil, and then I would have to enter in a username and password. So I am going to enter in the admin password in this case. And all of these are adjustable at the time of installation. So if there's something specific to your laboratory that you would want to do for any of these passwords or usernames, we can put those into the instrument. So we would have the sterilization time or the sterilization temperature that we can adjust. To adjust anything, you just hit the pencil and then program in the number that you want. This system can sterilize anything above 100 degrees all the way up to 121. The limit temperature for our MediaPrep systems is going to be 125. We can store that. Then we have the sterilization time, normally 15 minutes. If we want to adjust that, if you have any media that gets overcooked very easily, then we can lower that down to 5-10 minutes, whatever you would want to be. So there are a lot of other pieces in here that are not necessarily something that everyone would program because I am in the admin password. I can go to a start by time as well, which is a really nice feature. So I can preload this instrument the night before, and then I can use a start by time feature that when I would press start, it would pop a clock for me, and I would say, I want to start this at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. If I started at 6 a.m. when I get in at 7:30 in the afternoon, then that is already completed, or 7:30 in the morning, it's already completed, and then I can begin dispensing right away. Our additions temperatures are down at the bottom, and also there are programmable parts for the stirring mechanism. So I can program the stirring mechanism during the heating, then during the cooling, and then dispensing as well. The reason for that is during dispensing, I obviously don't want to be creating a lot of bubbles in the bottom of the media that are going to transfer into my plates. During the heating portion, we do want to stir it pretty vigorously so we can get everything into suspension. That being said, if I have components that are in there that solutes that happen to fall out of suspension very easily, we may want to change that programming and increase that stirring speed during that portion of the cycle. As we go further down, there are additions temperatures, and that's the temperature that we would program in for us to be able to add any components. So normally that would be somewhere around 60 degrees, and then we can program in a time for how long it remains at 60 degrees after you've added your components. So if you decide that you're going to go to lunch and the media cools down to 60 degrees and it gives an alert that you need to add your components, it would set at that stage until you've added your components and pressed go for it to continue the cycle. So once you press go for it to continue the cycle, your additions time would be there. It would stir for that amount of time and then cool on down to our dispensing temperature. Each portion of this cycle is completely programmable by the end user. Obviously, the most often things that you program are going to be the sterilization temperature and time, and then any additions. There are some other pieces of programming inside of here that we can do as well, depending upon applications. There's very few types of sterilization applications that we can't do something with utilizing these systems. So once we finished that and changed anything, we would simply just hit back, and it would say save changes. We would save changes, and now any of the parameters that we have changed would now be stored in this program. Most of the information that we would be looking at would be right on the main screen here. So when we go to a different program, it would pop what that information was for that cycle. Again, this is anything from 2 to 10 liters for this instrument, and once that's been completed, then we just hook up our tubing, dispense. When we're finished with this unit, at that point, we could just unload the vessel, wash it out, and then we're ready for our next cycle. So we're going to move over to the MediaFill. Again, I would like everyone to remember that if you do have any questions during this time frame, please make sure that you type them into the chat at the bottom of the screen, and then we will have those answered at the end of the demonstration. Okay, so we're now on to the MediaFill. On the MediaFill screen, this one would just have our time up there and then start cleaning and menu. So it is important to note that the cleaning button is there on the home screen of the instrument for a very important reason. If you keep this thing clean, then it will run for you very dependably. Once we start getting anything dirty in it, any hardened media, then that's going to give errors into the system, and you won't have a really dependable instrument. So we do recommend that you keep these very clean. The more clean you keep them, the more clean they will stay, because you won't have errors or spills. So there is a menu here that allows us to go into certain things of date, time, language, sound volume, those type of things. But we go to the start menu, so go to the cleaning menu first, and this just gives a display of all of the different motors that we can move inside of the instrument. The feeder, the stacker, also the revolver and the carousel. We can move those and index those so we can clean specific areas inside of the instrument. If we go to start, once we go to the start button, that would give us all of the information. Now this is our demo system, so we have pretty much everything programmed into this unit. So we're able to, with this unit, we have it on there for biplate filling, which is another application, manual filling, tube filling, and dish filling. So we have all of those in here. In addition, we also have load, unload, empty revolver, and prime pump inside of here. All of those features or all of those options are going to be inside of the programming of the individual program as well. So we will have the opportunity to access those after we've started a cycle. So since we have it set up as a dish filler, we're just going to press that button. And now it has the different programs that I have already pre-entered into the instrument. So right now I'm running with MediaPro 25, so I'm doing some deep dish plates at this point. So I could just select that cycle. When I select that cycle, it gives me the information that I have for individual things on the instrument. If I wanted to change any of that, again, it's very simple programming. I just go to the pencil, and now here are all the items that I can change individually for the programming. So it asks total quantity to fill. That's the volume that I may have in my MediaPrep system. Right now I have entered in there that I have 10 liters in the instrument. Then if I tell it the number of dishes to fill, I can program that in to tell it what volume that I want, if I want to pour 30 plates, or I can tell it that I just want to dispense until it's finished if I want to. We'll just do 30 in this case. I believe that's how many I have. Permanent filling we will leave off. And then here is my dish type. So we could name the dish type for the manufacturer of the dish and then all of the parameters. So if I go to the pencil here, it gives me all of the parameters for that individual plate. But I also have a dish list that I can choose any other type of plate that I may use for this. So if you currently buy from VWR, then you need to change from Fisher, or you buy different plates, even though they all need to be slippable. All of them have a few different parameters and different heights, and we would program those into the system so you can use them interchangeably. So I just say, yes, that's the plate that I want. Then we have a break time. Then I can program in the volume that I want into the plate. So just by hitting the pencil, I can just program what that volume is that I want. And then we also have a drop stop. That drop stop will prevent any dripping from the dispensing nozzle in between each individual plate. Many times for, especially like plant tissue culture media, is very liquid, so it's not very viscous like bacteriological media. If you have something that has a very low viscosity, we can program that drop stop up to 2 mils, so the pump will back pump in between each individual plate. So I can just leave that as 1 in this case. Then I have an additions pump. If I wanted to have some additions in line, can program the pump speed, whether I want to move the revolver back and forth. So if you are dispensing a small overlay, we can do that as well, and actually move the revolver as the plate is being dispensed, so it actually gives a nice even distribution of that media onto the bottom of the plate. And we can turn the UV lamp on. Our cooling option would be on as well, and then we can just store that information. Then we would just start the cycle, and it's going to ask me a couple of different questions here to begin this. It's going to load and look in the revolver to make sure there are no plates inside of the instrument. Then we would have a chance to prime the pump or calibrate or load or unload the carousel. So all of those options are available. So we can load and unload, so we're only loading to the front of the instrument and not loading around the back of it, so we can rotate that carousel. Excuse me. I would prime the main pump as well. We could prime that pump so there's bubble free once we get to the plates. Calibrate that so we know the volume that is going into the instrument. So if I wanted to calibrate, I would simply go to the main pump, hit go. It would dispense a dose of media into a graduated cylinder. We would then program in what volume that we actually received, and it would self-adjust. So if we wanted 10 mils, but we only got 9, we would just put in 9, and then it would self-correct. We can just get back at that point. That would load the program parameters, and then we could just hit go. And so the system at this point knows that it's going to be dispensing 30 plates. And notice that I used the standard plates before. I'm using deep dish at this point. All that is parameters that I program inside of the instrument, so I don't have to do any adjustment whatsoever to move to the deep dish plates. It will give you a timer eventually as well on how long it's going to take for all of those plates to be dispensed. Here we're only doing 30 plates at only a 10 mil fill, so it's going to be very quick. And then just rotate the plates through. Now the time for the plate to be filled and ran through the process is a little bit, it's not linear, meaning that the plates themselves, handling the plates themselves, is the most time-consuming process of it. So it is the fill volume takes into an account, but each individual plate that we handle does take some time. So again, it's not linear just based upon the fill volume. So another option that we have for this instrument as well is a pager device. So this pager device can actually be attached. You can carry this with you, lay it on your desk. It has a very large range, and so once the cycle is actually finished, this will send you an alert to let you know that the plate pour is either finished or there's been an error of some sort. So this is a pretty nice little device that you can carry with you. That way you don't have to stand here. If we are going to make walk-away automation, it should be truly walk-away. And that's what this pager allows us to do. So we're just going to adjust a little bit and move back to give an overview of the instruments again. And once we do that, I'm going to finish up with a little bit of a PowerPoint presentation just to finish that out. And then we will move forward with any questions that you may have. One thing that I think I failed to mention is the caps that are on the top of the MediaPreps are locked by a locking pin that is located in the back of the instrument. So each of them have these various teeth on the top of the lid that the locking pin will lock into these positions. So this lid cannot be removed during any type of cycle because the locking pin will move into position and then it will lock this down, so we cannot move that after the cycle has started. So our pager is on, and once our plates are finished, and it's going to stop my cycle, going to make a nice little noise on the MediaFill, and then it's going to send information to my pager and let me know that the cycle has been completed. Once that's finished, we can just simply remove our tubing, rinse the tubing out, and then let our plates either stay in here for drying, or we can move them for drying at another time. So now I'm going to finish up with, again, our PowerPoint presentation, just to hit a few key components, key points, and then we'll open it up for questions. So the Systec MediaPrep line, again, we have multiple units. So we have 7 different instruments. The 10, 20, and 30-liter units all built on the same chassis that you can see on the left-hand side of the screen there. All of those units have a 2-liter minimum, with the top end being the 10, 20, and 30. The 45 and the 65-liter units have a 10-liter minimum volume, and then the 90 and the 120 have a 20-liter minimum in each of those units. Each of these systems, as far as installation requirements are concerned, would be a demineralized water, tap water, and then power to the instrument as well. So the MediaPrep 10 is a single-phase 20-amp 240. Then the 20 and the 30 are going to be 3-phase 230 amp. And then the other instruments, all the rest of them, are going to be a 50-amp circuit at 230 volts. And all of those would be 3-phase, except the MediaPrep 10, which is a single-phase instrument. So the high points for the MediaPrep systems: we can prepare and sterilize broth or agar-based media in roughly 90 minutes. Once we get to the 120-liter system, it's going to be a bit longer, simply because of the sheer volume of the instruments. 7 models from 10 to 120 liters. We have laminar sterile cool water cooling via heat exchanger. So the tap water inside of this instrument never touches any of the demineralized water as it runs through that heat exchanger. We have pre-selectable temperature holds after sterilization, ports for adding components. The ASME certification, which is quite important. You will get a U1A document with every Systec MediaPrep instrument that will verify the ASME status. So another option that we have is putting compressed air into the instrument and pushing all of the media out of the unit. So if you want to utilize a MediaPrep system for something other than plate pouring, like filling 1-liter bottles or dispensing into a large holding bag, then we can do that as well. There is no option that needs to be purchased. It is standard in the instrument that would allow us to use compressed air to push that media out of there very gently, much faster than a peristaltic pump as well. So very easy cleaning with the bucket being removed. The system can be used as a normal autoclave, though it's not a normal application for it on a regular basis. We have safety temperature and pressure dependent locks and a pre-programmable start time. So in the filling chamber, this is just the filling chamber of the unit, and what you will see on the right-hand side is we also offer a clean bench that allows the MediaFill to be placed inside of a laminar flow hood for use. The system is very sterile. Probably 95% of all the instruments that we sell are just operated directly on a bench with no problems with any type of sterility issues. However, if you do want to make sure that you are belt and braces covered, then we can do that with the clean bench that we offer. So the MediaFill plate pour allows you to do standard plates, the deep dish, 35 and 60 millimeter attachments are available, as well as the tube filling attachment that we showed during the demonstration. So again, I really appreciate your time. Hopefully there's some questions that will be asked by my colleague, and additional information can be found on our website at 800easymicro.com.
Yeah, Jason, we thank you for that. We did have a few questions. So the first one would be for maintenance and stuff like that. Is there like a daily routine, and then as well as like a yearly PM service?
So the service that we would recommend for any of these instruments, as far as the MediaPrep system is concerned, there is a pre-programmed cleaning cycle on all of our MediaPrep units that is run without the vessel. That goes to a higher temperature and pressure than any of the standard cycles would run. And what that allows us to do is it allows us to flush everything out of this instrument. So we would recommend, depending upon use, running that either weekly or bi-weekly. So you would run that for all of the instruments that we have in our production. We run them every Friday. So all of our instruments would get a cleaning cycle ran on them. We do recommend a yearly PM for all of these. We do have our own service organization that would be providing that preventive maintenance service. That would include calibration of all of the probes in here and pressure transducers, as well as new gaskets, and just make sure that everything is working well inside of the instrument. As far as the MediaFill is concerned, we would recommend taking it apart and cleaning it at least every week. For sure every week, and then also anytime that there is a spill inside of the unit, we have sensors that will indicate whether we have a top and bottom to the plate, so it will dispense correctly and skip a plate if it doesn't open up. So sometimes there's static in here and the plate doesn't open, so it won't dispense into that. However, we can't detect whether there's a crack in the bottom of the plate. So if that were to occur and you did get a spill in the instrument, we would recommend taking the unit apart, giving it a nice and thorough cleaning, and then putting it back together. In addition to the normal cleaning that you would do with this, in order for us to maintain sterility, any hardened media that gets down into the filling chamber will get spore formers inside of them. So if we keep that really nice and clean, those spore formers go away, and we don't have to worry about that point of time when the lid is actually open for any dusting to come and settle on the top of the plate. So as far as to sum up that answer, I'd recommend a thorough cleaning of this once a week, anytime that it gets a spill, and this just run the cleaning cycle once a week.
Sounds good. For the MediaFill and the plates, if we have a plate labeler, is that able to be, included at the same time?
Yes, it is. So there is a ability to add. Could you zoom in for me, please? So on this instrument, there is in the back, located here, there is the ability to put a print head directly in this area. It would load through the back of this lid, so you'll see a hole in the back of the lid as well. So the print head comes directly through there, and then it will dispense directly on the side of the plates as they're being filled. The printer that we offer is a Lynx printer. And that Lynx printer would be attached. It could set somewhere else and have on the bench. It has a fairly long umbilical. Would go to the back of the instrument and dispense onto those plates as they're being poured. We can fit up to 3 lines of 26 characters on the side of a standard plate. Now, those 3 lines would be very tight, but if you want to put any programming in that printer of expiration date for a specific type of plate, then it would automatically, the message would know on this given day that we have 3 months available. Once those 3 months are surpassed, then it would just label that directly onto the plate for you.
Okay. And then on top of service-related items, do you offer any IQ/OQ services or calibration or temperature mapping and things like that?
We do offer temperature mapping in all of our MediaPrep devices. We do offer IQ/OQ. They are a standard package for the MediaPreps as well as the MediaFill. And those would be able to be modified slightly to fit your application. We can also do performance qualification as well. Now, the IQ/OQ is a standard application, and so that document already exists. For your performance qualification, it would be depending upon your application, and those documents would be written by us, provided to you for review before we would come out and do those services.
Okay. And the last question I have is regarding facility supply. If we don't have DI water being able to make it into the lab or piped in, is there a solution for that?
We do offer an Easy Water Pro system that is a reverse osmosis unit that would be able to fill the outer vessel with the demineralized water. The capacity for that is most likely not enough to fill the actual unit for any type of media preparation, so that would still be you would still be relying on the source that you're currently using for creating water, whatever demineralized water. But if you don't have hard pipe demineralized water in your laboratory, we would have all of the plumbing and everything that we would need and all the tubes that we would need in order to hook our Easy Water Pro system into the back of the unit for the filling of the vessel water. That unit is about the size of a computer tower, so it is very small, requires one 115 volt outlet, so very easy for us to install that in conjunction with the MediaPreps.
And then we just got another question regarding access levels. What's the difference between the user and the admin? And
so we have up to 5 different user levels programmed into the MediaPrep systems, not for the MediaFill because it's not pressure and temperature related. So we only have them on the MediaPreps, and those are from 1 to 5, 1 being a very basic level that would allow you to get into the instrument and run programs. but it wouldn't allow you to alter any programs. Then up to 5 would be our service level. 4 would be the admin level that allows access to almost all of the parameters that are not service related. And then between 2 and 3, they just limit a few of the other options that you have available, but you would be able to operate the system. So 5 levels, 5 being service, so in essence 4 different levels for the users to be able to access.
Sounds good. That's all the questions that I have.
Okay, well, I really appreciate your time, folks. Thank you for sticking around. Again, 1-800-EASY-MICRO. You can find information on our website. All of our data is there. Our phone number is also 1-800-396-4276, which is the same as our web address. So feel free to contact us at any time, and I really appreciate your time. Thank you, and have a good afternoon.